Long, long ago, when life was just hunky-dory, a group of people made peace, a cinematic glory. Now they're getting back together, not in person, only virtually, but it's a start. They're reunited apart.
What has two thumbs and still can't walk outside without abject terror?
This guy. It's another day of the week, which means it must be time for another edition of Reunited Apart, a show that brings together some of our favorite cast and creative teams from some of our favorite movies, all from the safety of their own homes, either because they're still socially distancing or because they're just too damn lazy to put on pants. Unless you are.
I'm Josh Gad.
Now, here on Reunited Apart, we are committed to raising as much money as possible for those organizations that are so desperately trying to get the help to those who need it the most right now.
Please push that donate button right there if you're on a desktop or right there if you're on a mobile device, and give whatever you can to today's spotlight charity, No Kid Hungry. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, nearly 1 in 7 kids in the US lived in hunger, and many relied on the free and reduced priced breakfasts and lunches they received at school. Due to record unemployment rates and new financial stressors, 1 in 4 kids could face hunger this year because of the coronavirus. So we are doing something different and very special on this week's episode of Reunited Apart. We are teaming up with our partners at Cheerios to help pledge
$1.3 million to No Kid Hungry.
Cheerios wants you to join with us to help spread positivity. Share in social with hashtag Good Goes Round to encourage others to join and spread positivity to those who need it the most. Thank you to everyone at home who is going to take the second right now to make that number go higher and higher and higher. We are so beyond grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you for the food. Say thank you. Thank you.
Now, this episode, we're going to break away from one of my favorite decades of all time, the 1980s, and take a little trip into the future, also known as our past, the year 2001, not to be confused with A Space Odyssey. In December of 2001, this movie and the trilogy to follow would bring with them a level of excitement and anticipation not seen since the days of the Star Wars films. It was a trilogy that would make mainstream words like hobbits, orcs, ringwraiths, elves, dwarves, wizards, and of course a place that all of us would like to shelter in place right now, the Shire. And it was a trilogy that would center around the power of one ring. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness, bind them. Today, we are on our own journey to bring together the fellowship behind this iconic trilogy based on the books by author J.R.R. Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, Josh.
Hey!
Dad, hey there.
Hey, Sean.
Look, man, I told you the Goonies are done. Brolin sent you a cease and desist. Spielberg changed his name so you can't call him. We're done.
Which is why I'm not calling about that.
Oh, really? Great. What are you calling about? Encino Man? We're going to do Encino Man? How about Rudy? Let's do Rudy.
No, if the people can't have football, neither should we, Sean, neither should we. No, I was wondering what you might think about tracking down a certain group of buddies, comrades, pals. I don't know, what's another word for that? Maybe, I know, fellowship.
Josh, man, you've got to be out of your mind, man. Come on.
You fought off an army of orcs multiple times, escaped from the clutches of the Uruk-hai, killed the demon spider Shelob, wounded the demon spider Shelob, ran away from Gollum, all to destroy the most powerful ring in the world. How hard can a phone call to Elijah Wood be?
All right, you got a point.
I don't understand. Were you already on with Elijah?
I am always on with Elijah. It comforts him.
It comforts me.
Elijah, hey, I'm a big fan. Wondering if you might be up for reuniting apart?
Well, I usually do my reuniting together, so...
Right. Well, what if the reunion in question was one that reunited the cast of The Lord of the Rings?
Well, I figured we weren't bringing back the cast of North, but that's not a decision that Sean and I can make alone.
Hi, guys.
Hey!
Dom, where did you come from?
Oh, I'm always just waiting in the wings, in case there's kind of a life and death situation between Sean and Elijah.
Would you say you were lost?
Josh, come on, you're better than that, Josh.
Hey, what would you think of a Lord of the Rings reunion, Dom?
Dom, Elijah, Sean.
Hello.
Hi, mate.
Hey.
Billy, were you also just randomly on with the cast?
Yes, we have been on together now for
Billy, don't.
2,565 days.
So we took Monday off.
No, I don't take Mondays off.
Okay. Not judging. So again, wondering if we could possibly gather the group together and reunite one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Orlando Bloom is now on.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I just had to find a mirror, just take a quick glance, remind myself that I am in fact Orlando Bloom.
I really don't understand what's happening. You guys always on a Zoom call together?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we're always on a call, always. Katie just has to remind me to turn the Zoom off in bed.
Never turn the Zoom off in bed, Orlando. Never turn the Zoom off in bed.
Okay. Again, back to my previous question. What would you all say to a Lord of the Rings reunion?
Elijah?
Wish this choice had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Dominic Monaghan, Billy Boyd, Orlando Bloom, and Sir Ian McKellan, my Fellowship of the Ring.
I remember when we all said goodbye 30 years ago, that we were going to have regular reunions. Have you been having these reunions without me?
No.
I mean,
Yes, they have.
Yes and no.
Let's bring on the mastermind behind the magic, one Peter Jackson.
Drum roll!
Is this a hallucination? I've been in a bubble. I've been in a bubble for weeks, and this is my first contact with humanity, and it's these people.
Welcome, guys, to Reunited Apart. First of all, I need to ask you guys about these infamous tattoos, and do the two of you also have them, or is it just this group? Somebody show me this tattoo.
Don't ask Ian to show.
Oh, yes.
Paulie.
I think mine's on this shoulder here, but I'm not going to take my shirt off. Ian,
Be careful.
Mine's there.
When I read this upside down, of course, it spells Gucci.
Flash my tricep there. Don't just ignore that. Just ignore that tricep, guys. That's just a isolation tricep.
Come on, Elijah.
Ignore that bicep, Dom.
Elijah, I know where you had yours. I was holding your hand all the way through.
Yes. Holding his gland at one point, I think, Ian.
Look here.
Oh, God. 3 inches lower, and we would have been in trouble then. Never mind.
Peter and Philippa, I need to ask the two of you, how does one go about convincing a studio to make 3 massive films at once? I'm asking for a friend.
Well, it's never a moment. It's not a moment like that happens. You just incrementally do a little bit, and then eventually the studio are in too deep to turn back. It's a little bit of development here, a little bit of let's design some stuff here, a little bit of money there, a little bit of money there, and eventually they realize they spent too much to not do it.
Yeah, they're too deep in at that point.
Yeah.
Philippa, Ian said that you wrote lines that were even more exquisite, and I quote, than J.R.R. Tolkien.
I'm a good mimic. But you know what? I have to say, Fran and I sometimes, I know you do some writing, Josh, exposition, it's just a killer. And all of these brilliant actors had to leverage lines off the page. And every now and then we'd get this really tricky exposition, and Fran and I would just look at each other and say, it's fine, Ian will get it off the page.
I have no memory of what Tolkien wrote versus what we wrote. And occasionally I'm with these guys, I might say, God, that line, that Tolkien line, so and so was great. That we, and then I get a little voice of Philip is saying, "I wrote that." You know, so people
Gandalf doesn't say "you shall not pass" in the book.
You shall not pass!
No.
Because you cannot
He says
pass.
you will not pass. But you know what? One of the first things I ever wrote for Fran and Pete, and I think it's why you offered me the job, was a wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Yeah, you see, so that's a Philippa line, not a Tolkien line.
A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Obviously, everybody on my screen right now is a perfect match of talent and role. But tell me about two of my other favorite roles in the film. How did you come about casting both Aragorn and, of course, Gollum?
Oh my God!
Well, Viggo was cast at the last minute because we were going another way with Aragorn, which didn't work, and we just started shooting. And Viggo doesn't make decisions very quickly. You know, he's somebody who, if you ask him, you know, what time it is, you'll get the answer in the next day or two. You know, and by that stage, it won't be the same time anymore. So he he needs to think. But fortunately, his son, I believe, was a huge Tolkien fan, and when he was going, I don't know about that. I don't know. His son was saying, "Do it, Dad, do it, Dad." So
Henry.
I think Viggo's son Henry is the true hero of the story, not Aragorn.
Let's bring on the father of Henry and the artist formerly known as Smeagol, one Viggo Mortensen and Andy Serkis.
Hey!
Viggo
Wow.
just left. Viggo is not interested in.
Yeah, he's not interested. Yeah,
He's not quite decided if he wants to be on this call yet. So let's not don't put any. Hopefully, Viggo, you've got Henry there to tell you to sit down and be on the call.
No, I don't have him here, unfortunately.
Oh, how can you run your life without Henry?
Henry convinced you to do Lord of the Rings? What? I don't understand. So you came into Lord of the Rings later than everyone else, Viggo. What was it like playing catch up? Did everyone immediately welcome you, or were they standoffish?
No.
Well, I am grateful to Henry, although he is kind of a pain in the ass, so that's why I've escaped his clutches for the past couple months. But no, I was worried a bit. You know, you want to contribute, so I was a little nervous. And then I started reading the book, and I really liked it, and I found some things that I could connect with. You know, I mean, like, you know, was familiar with Nordic sagas and fairy tales, and I've also read Celtic material and stuff, so it wasn't that unfamiliar. I relaxed a bit as I started reading the book, but then once I landed, I got very nervous all over again. I didn't know what would be expected and how soon. Fortunately for me, the first things I had to do were physical, were nonverbal. It was, you know, sword fighting.
Viggo, I think you're the first person to ever say to me that, you know, thankfully you had a knowledge of Celtic material. And
thinking the same thing.
I'm really impressed by this.
Yeah, look, it really was and from my perspective, for a moment, you are totally at sea. You have no one playing this character, and then fate steps in and says, "God, you stuffed this up, but there's one guy who's going to be the perfect person to play this, and just follow me." And
what was the first scene you guys shot together?
We were very lucky.
What scene? What was the first scene?
Was it Weathertop?
Weathertop against the Wraiths.
Yeah, flames. You with the fire and flames. I remember that so well. New Line were understandably nervous, not because of Viggo, but just because this drama had happened, and suddenly we didn't have anybody. Then we had Viggo and stuff, and so we were under strict orders that the second the first day's filming with Viggo was over, we had to dispatch the rushes to America, and they were withholding the permission to decide whether we had got the right guy or not. And luckily, it was fire, race, flames, and it just blew them away.
So I could have sunk the trilogy on my first day of work.
Well, yeah, but I think it was all good. See, fate was saying, for God's sake, don't do a boring dialogue scene. Do something cool that the studio are going to get excited about.
Andy's sitting there quietly waiting for his turn. Andy, tell me Andy, about creating one of the most iconic performances of all time.
Well, it was an interesting one, because when I first heard from my agent this was happening, it was just like, look, Andy, they're doing this amazing kind of film of Lord of the Rings down in New Zealand, and they'd like to see you for a voice for a digital character. And I was like,
a voice?
What? I remember at the time I was working in Prague on an adaptation of Oliver Twist, actually. And I said to this other actor I was working with, I said, I think I might be going out to New Zealand to do this character, this digital character. And he said, well, is your face going to be on screen? And I said, no, it's not. And he said, mate, I wouldn't touch it with the barge pole, mate. and I was like, Pete did say, look, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to happen, but we're trying out this methodology called motion capture, and you want someone to be on set to be Gollum, but not, actor could be actually how we envision him, because he's so
that's right. No. It was a voice in our imaginations. We didn't understand even ourselves where this technology was going to head within the course of the movie. So it was just going to be a voice at the beginning. Yeah.
There's every expectation that Gollum is going to be better than Jar Jar Binks, just in terms of his realism and his lip sync and everything else. I mean, we're aiming at that level.
I do remember my first day on set, which is, up on top of the mountain, doing one of the final scenes out of the trilogy, which of course happens, doesn't it? Some of the last scenes that you do on your first day. And I just remember Pete seeing me in my green onesie and just laughing uncontrollably, and anything that I was doing, I just thought, oh, he must think this is a joke, really. But
I remember seeing people walking by, and you had the onesie on with knee pads, and it's like, how do you communicate what sport this is?
I want to ask about some of the competitive relationships in this film. Orlando, your partner in crime, Gimli, and Viggo, your rivalry with the great son of Gondor, Boromir. Can you guys tell me about those relationships?
The rivalry was really good because me and John had a little bit of that bristling stuff going on between us anyway, because from what I remember, John was like very good at trying to, he's a very powerful and wonderful actor, and obviously I'd seen him in Indiana Jones and things like that and as a kid, so I was but I remember him being quite strict with me and quite kind of,
really?
He was quite kind of kept me in check a little bit.
No, my boy, no.
And I'm not somebody who likes to be kept in check at the best of times.
I have to say, John did have the benefit of an Easy Boy recliner.
He did.
That was part of his contract.
Yeah.
This is true. And he had it everywhere. And I remember one of our early things that we shot, we were up on, I don't know what the mountain's called, on the South Island, where we went up to shoot Where the Crows Come. And I remember that a helicopter had to take a separate ride, or it came up with all the camera equipment, this giant Easy Boy recliner that.
That's a wonderful name for Orlando, Easy Boy Recliner.
Please welcome to Reunited Apart, Lord of the Rings edition, the final two of the Fellowship, John Rhys-Davies and Sean Bean.
Oh, where are they?
Oh my God. John, hello. John recently was being mute and frozen is not necessarily at a disadvantage at this stage. Let's just say.
John. That was a fast cameo from John.
This much time has passed, nothing has changed. We're all the same. It's fucking amazing.
I love it.
I was worried. I was worried that this was going to feel like a reunion of old classmates, but it's actually cellmates, so it's far better.
Hello, Sean. How are you?
None of these bastards trusted you in the film until you blew on the horn of Gondor to prove yourself. Did this fellowship of people actually, were they welcoming to you, or did they create a distance as they were in character?
As people, I don't think.
No, as gases.
Yeah, I think
he wants a cup of tea and a biscuit, is what Sean wants.
Oh, Sean.
Give him a cup of tea and a digestive. I love it.
The first time Elijah and I met Sean was we were down in Queenstown, and there was a big flood, and they were building sets on the squash court to try and find some way to
As soon as somebody gets remotely boring, it just freezes. So,
Okay,
The point is, we were playing a video game, and Sean Bean's character was 006, and I shot 006 in the head on screen with a perfectly photoreal likeness of Sean, and then Sean walked right by afterwards.
The best story about, I'll try and do it quickly, the best story about that flood was that everyone was driving from the top of the South Island to the bottom to shoot, and some people were flying and some people were driving, and Orlando and Sean Bean were in a car with Bridget Burke, our production coordinator, and we were checking in with them to see whereabouts they were. It's a very remote part of the country, very, very remote. But what happened is that the car that Orlando and Sean were in, they were driving over a mountain, and they come around a corner, and there's been a huge slip. The hillside's fallen down because it was torrential storm. They had to turn around to head back and do this long detour. They go around the next corner, and the landslide was in front of them then. So there'd been a landslide behind them while they were looking. And so they were now stuck between two landslides in the remotest part of New Zealand by themselves. There's an old lady living by herself in the house. So she invites them in for a cup of tea, and they end up staying with her for about three days. Is that right?
It was sort of like that. It was sort of like that, Pete. What happened was we got to a gas station. They said, well, we were stuck between the two roadsides, and they said, well, we've got some lodgers accommodation, like backpackers accommodation. And the first thing Sean got was, oh, no, we got money, we can pay. So we had this one room, and I remember Sean had the bedroom. I slept on a couch with Bridget in the same room. And then the whole crazy thing about this story, though, for Sean, is that he hates to fly. Like literally we had to take a helicopter to get to work. And I remember sitting next to Sean in this helicopter going up over we had to go up over the Remarkables. Remember, Pete, to get to Queenstown. And his hand on my knee, I will never forget. It was like a white knuckle. It was like a proper bony white knuckling ride.
It was because of that when within a week or so, we had a scene that we all had to be helicoptered up to this lake and it was quite high in the mountains. And Sean just said, look, I can't do it. I'll come very, very early. I'll get on my gear, all my Boromir gear, and I'll start to climb, just on foot. We were flying up, and I looked down, and there's this vast cliff in the mountain, and I could see Sean like a human fly, climbing up a fairly vertical rock face. It was actually...
One of the things I'm obsessed with about these movies is that you guys stacked the first movie with all of these incredible people, and then you didn't stop there. You started to bring in even more insane talent. So I would love now to bring out Eowyn and Eomer themselves, Miranda Otto and Carl Urban.
Oh, hear him!
Oh my gosh, this is glorious. Hello.
Oh, John. There's John.
Hey, John.
John, we had you for a second and then we lost you. I was going to ask you, who was in makeup longer, you or Sir Ian?
Well, naturally, I'm going to say me, but I suffered most. That's undisputed.
Yeah. It took us all of 6 seconds before the suffering had to be pointed out.
I always rather enjoyed being made up. I'd arrive very early and have breakfast and then just recline in my Easy Boy recliner. Was he called that? Easy Boy? What was he called?
Lazy Boy.
Lazy Boy, yes. When I started out, it took 90 minutes for me to get all that stuff on. And by the end of The Hobbit, we got it down to 35 minutes.
35 minutes?
35,
Wow.
yeah.
We had the best makeup crew.
We are missing someone right now, and my screen doesn't feel complete. So I'm going to bring on the love of Aragorn himself, Liv Tyler. There she is!
This is wild. Hey, Lizzie.
Hello, my love.
Favorite memories from making Lord of the Rings? Liv, go. What's your favorite memories?
Oh, everything. Togetherness, sweetness, humor, innocence, doing something that had never been done before. It was kind of crazy at times, but everyone just gave their everything. It was so special. It was like growing up together. It was like family, you know?
I remember my first day was on the Helm's Deep set, and I walked on, and there's literally, I think, maybe 400 or 500 extras dressed up as orcs. There was a scale model of Helm's Deep, and it took all of my energy just not to lose my shit at how insane this was.
To the king! To the king!
So if you guys are up for it, whoever is up for it, I would love to bring some of these scenes to life. Peter, Philippa, do you have any suggestions or direction for your cast?
Well, they didn't pay any attention to us first time round, so I don't.
All right, Elijah, Ian,
Yes.
take it away.
You're late.
A wizard is never late, Bilbo. Frodo.
Come on, Ian, you're better than that.
Let's take it back.
He arrives precisely. That was my very first day. My very first entrance into the movie. And that was the first day of shooting. And 2 days later, I did my second scene. And it was the last scene in the last movie of Lord of the Rings. Remember when Gandalf sailing away with... And I had to meet the hobbits and say goodbye to them. I'd never met them before.
Orlando and John, in your library, you want to take us into the next scene? Do you still got it?
Oh, right. Okay. So we're at on the battlefield. Right. Let me just tilt this up a wee bit. What's happening out there?
Shall I describe it to you? Or would you like a box?
Yes! Did everyone on your set keep props?
I didn't get a helmet.
Oh!
I didn't get a helmet.
Pull out a prop. If you have a prop from Lord of the Rings, pull it out right now, because I'm very impressed by the fact that everybody got something from this.
My
What?
God, amazing.
Come
Mine's
on.
in New York. I have my sword too. That's so sweet, you guys.
Peter, this is called theft.
All right, should we do the
All
same?
right, show Miranda and Carl respect, guys.
All
We're
right.
shooting on
All
set.
right.
Here we go. You should not encourage him.
You should not doubt him.
I do not doubt his heart, only the reach of his arm.
Why should Merry be left behind? Why can he not fight for those he loves?
You know as little of war as that hobbit. When fear takes him, and the blood and the screams of the horror battle take hold, do you think he would stand and fight? He would try to do so. Province of Newell.
Yes!
Hey!
Oh, Dom, Billy, take it away.
Okay, Bills, ready?
Yes.
Oi! We're coming too. Have to tie us up in a sack to stop us.
Anyway, you need people of intelligence on this sort of mission, quest, thing.
That rules you out, Pip.
This is so fun to listen to you guys.
Sean, you got it, or you do not have it?
Got it. I put.
Oh, yeah.
If I put my glasses on.
Oh, I put your specs on, Sean.
Oh,
Go on,
yeah.
put your specs on.
Right. We're all afraid, Frodo. But to let that fear drive us to destroy what home we have, well, why don't you see that as madness?
There's no other way.
What chance do you think you have? They will find you. They will take the ring. And you will beg for death before the end.
You fool. This is not yours, saved by unhappy chance. Might have been mine. Should be mine. Give it to me. Give me the ring.
Yes!
Yes!
So gorgeous. Andy, we know you still have Gollum. You got to do it all over again in The Hobbit. If you want to give us this iconic scene with Sean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go for it, Sean.
Okay. What we need's a few good taters.
What's taters, precious? What's taters?
Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Yeah.
Big golden chips and a nice piece of fried fish. Even you couldn't say no to that.
Oh, yes, we could. Spoiling nice fish. Chips.
Oh, you're hopeless.
Oh, so good.
Can I ask a question quick, please? It's been bloody weeks of a lockdown here. I'm sure the same for you guys. And during all of that, there was only one thing that really kept me awake. Is I was just wondering, with how does social distancing work for Schmeagol and Gollum? How do they social distance?
Social distancing is for pussies who likes to drink disinfectant brushes.
Ian and John, please give me such an incredible exchange that it literally was the entire trailer to the sequel.
Gandalf. Yes, that was what they used to call me. Gandalf the Gay. I am Gandalf the White, and I come back to you now at the turn of the tide.
The Gandalf impersonator on the net that does it just about as good as Eddie. I mean, I didn't quite know if it was Ian or the impersonator.
He does it a lot better than me.
Liv, you got one?
Sure.
Yay, Lifty!
You do the first part, and I'll say my part.
Give up the halfling, she-elf.
Good.
If you want him, come and claim him.
Oh.
Yeah! Wait, then I have to do this. Raise my sword and I say, Ninu hithaiglir lasto bethdair, rimonin bruinenda nin ulayar. And I say that a few times, but.
Oh, that was incredible. By the way, how hard was it to learn Elvish for all of you? How hard was it to teach them all these languages?
Well, we had this amazing dialect coach named Andrew Jack who just passed.
I know.
I know. Let's raise a glass.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of our team that got really killed by the virus, Tyrrell.
If the actor can use the accent in his or her spontaneous speech, it means that it doesn't matter what's in the script, wouldn't you think?
They can handle anything.
They can then do anything that's thrown at them.
They were amazing. It was so fun. It was like language boot camp, but I used to get the Elvish on cassette tapes with the line like that, and then they'd write it out in a way that you could, so it's sort of phonetically, so we could memorize it. And it's all stayed in my brain forever because we just learned it in a way that it kind of stuck with you. So I still remember most of my Elvish lines, but.
I can still remember all my old English lines.
Oh,
really?
wow.
Yeah, from the funeral.
Do it. Give us a taste.
Berlo quem have a freoni fecken forth on sended, yen shulan singan gleomen soriende in meduselde, that Hemana weareth, that his drukne dearest and Maya dearost.
Amazing.
Sean, you have one line in the movie that's become an internet meme. Did you know this?
Which you're me.
Yeah, you.
Right, yeah. Do you want me to do that one then?
Yeah, say it
I think
for
I
us.
can remember this. One does not simply walk into Mordor.
Can I just say one thing about that scene? Is that entire speech that Sean had to deliver at the Council of Elrond was written the night before. It's long, and we gave it to Sean in the morning he arrived. What Sean did, which I thought was very clever, is he got a printout of the speech taped to his knee. It was on his knee, and when he did that scene, you'll see one cannot just walk into Mordor. If you watch the scene now, you'll see every time that Sean has to check his script.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
Can I just say, when I arrived rather late in New Zealand to start filming, Peter and Fran took us out for a welcoming supper downtown in Wellington. Everyone was there, and I met for the first time the great Christopher Lee, 217 movies he'd made. And he was next to me, and his first words to me were, "I read Lord of the Rings every year." Then with the killer, quite early on in the soup course, he turned to me and he said, "I've always thought I should play Gandalf." After which we were the best of friends. Bless him.
What you have achieved is sheer magic, all of you. All of you, and I think that is the operative word, all of you. You are the greatest crew I've ever known.
I was behind them once. I was behind them queuing up for lunch one day. As we had lunch break, I remember them looking around at this vast food spread the crew were getting. He says, it's not as good as what they gave us on Star Wars.
All right, Peter, let's hear your Saruman. Give it to us.
Saruman. Okay, here we go. Okay.
All right.
Embrace the power of the ring or embrace your own destruction.
There can only be one Lord of the Rings. Only one who can bend them to his will, and he does not share power.
So you have chosen death.
Yes!
No, I tried to get some sort of an artificial help me to help my pathetic, horrible little voice. You're
a natural.
I mean, Christopher Lee had one of the most amazing natural voices, deep, sonorous, and my God, I don't think I've ever heard anyone actually come close to impersonating it. He's one of those people.
I can do a good Christopher Lee. You ready?
Give it to us.
It's from the blooper reel. Ready?
Well, you should have done the scene then, Dom.
I should have, but then I wasn't asked. You want to hear my Christopher Lee? Here we go.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I can't get up these damn stairs, Peter.
To advise, persuade. I'm sorry, I cannot get up these goddamn steps smoothly. I can't do it, Peter.
Let's do Orlando and John in one of my favorite scenes.
Okay.
I never thought I would die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
Oh.
I could do that.
Oh, I felt a little stabbing thing in my chest, and it was either emotional or a cardiac arrest. I'm not sure which.
Sean and Elijah, take us out.
Elijah, there's just a couple of words that are right before yours that seem in the COVID world, and this is a fundraiser and what we've all done that I want to add. So let me set you up with it, okay?
Right.
In the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass, and a new day will come. And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those are the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now, folk in those stories had lots of chances at turning back, only they didn't, because they were holding on to something.
What are you holding on to, Sam?
That there's some good left in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for.
Ooh. I'm not quite sure where to go from those incredible performances. The only thing we're missing now is a little music, so why don't we bring on the man behind one of the most iconic scores in the history of cinema. Please welcome Mr. Howard Shore.
Hi, Howard!
Hey.
Nice to see you.
Howard, tell me about the incredible score. Tell me about your collaboration with Peter and coming up with the amazing, iconic Ring theme.
It all began in the fall of 2000, and then we started with the Shire theme and the Fellowship theme, and then we kind of went into the Mines of Moria. We had a great subject to work with. You know, we were so proud to be working on.
Peter, do you remember the first time, do you and Philippa remember the first time you heard the score on the soundstage?
Normally when you make a movie, obviously the composer gets involved at the end. So the film's shot, it's finished, and then you hand it over to the composer. But we obviously talked to Howard early because we wanted him involved in the film, and he said, well, look, it would be great if I could come down to New Zealand and just sit in and watch a bit of filming, you know, early, just so I can start to think and start to understand the film that you're making. So Howard actually came down to New Zealand, and then he invited us around to his house one evening, and he said, I've got an idea or two to play you, and he played us it didn't really change much, the Fellowship theme and the Shire theme.
I felt like crying when I heard that, Howard, because I just felt like this is the other half of the film. This is going to be the other half.
I remember that you were recording the first stuff in Wellington in this big sort of wooden
The town hall, the old town hall, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember that some of us got permission to go in and watch some of that. It was incredible.
It was a Mines of Moria sequence. You know, it was the entire Mines of Moria sequence, like a 20-minute long piece.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to see that starting to take shape, even as we're shooting. Very unusual.
And what we really need to do in the future is have the orchestra on set while we're filming. So that,
you only get one take, though.
I thought I'd bring out now one of your fellow Kiwis to help me ask a couple of Lord of the Rings trivia questions. So please indulge me as I welcome to Reunited Apart Lord of the Rings edition the brilliant director behind Thor Ragnarok and an Academy Award winner for Jojo Rabbit, Taika Waititi. Taika, welcome.
Wow, what a reunion!
So are you doing what are you doing Star Wars now, Tiger, or Marvel or something cool? What are you doing?
All those cool things.
Yeah, I know. We're all stuck here on little screens thinking about the past, and you're surging ahead in the future. I know.
Tiger, why do you look so cool right now? What is happening over there? What is this?
That's like asking the wind why it blows. Some things cannot be answered.
Taika, you have some Lord of the Rings trivia questions you wanted to ask these guys, right?
Yep. Here's the first one. Why? Okay, no.
I've been asking myself that for 20 odd years. So yeah.
Nobody's ever shot 3 huge movies in a row before, and I think the most interesting thing I've discovered over the last 14 months is exactly why nobody's ever done that. Now I know, and therefore I won't be doing it again.
Who approached Stanley Kubrick to direct an adaptation of Lord of the Rings?
Anyone know this?
Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. The Beatles, after Hard Day's Night and Help, they had a third film in the United Artists contract, and they wanted to do Lord of the Rings. John Lennon was going to play Gollum. Paul McCartney was going to play Frodo. Ringo, Sam, and George was going to play Gandalf. And they got so serious that they actually approached J.R.R. Tolkien, who at that point still had the rights. They approached him, and Tolkien said no.
Okay. Who voices the Ringwraith screams?
Fran Walsh.
Hey.
Wow. Nice.
We had 2 recorders going on our first scream, and neither one of them could take it.
No, I know. It's amazing. She hits some frequency which is really disturbing.
What is Legolas's only line to Frodo in the entire trilogy?
What was that?
What's your only line? What's the only line you say to Frodo in the entire trilogy? And it's not "Get off my cape."
and my bow.
Yes!
And my bow.
Who got that, Sean?
And that's how you did it.
Nice, Sean.
Which film is the only one where no one wears the ring?
Ooh.
2 Towers.
Yeah, 2 Towers. It's got to be 2 Towers.
Dom, you're behaving like a man who thinks there's a prize.
Here's a bonus one. How many times does Gollum say "precious" in 2 Towers?
Ooh, Andy, you should know
74 times.
38.
22.
It sounds like 15. And in Return of the King, 17.
Before we go, tell me what Lord of the Rings means to each of you.
It means family and fellowship.
It was the most exciting thing I've ever worked on.
It was one of the best moments of my whole life, and I always want to go back again and visit.
Come back.
I dream about it. I know, I want to so much. You guys are amazing.
There was nothing better in my life than coming to New Zealand and seeing that country.
Yeah.
And the people. And now when I meet little kids who weren't even born when we were making the films, and I can have a relationship with them because they care about those characters, I mean, it's been an absolute blessing to me.
My memory and sort of just a sense of the film is a huge team effort. We were actually all on the same side, which is incredible. A lot of people working very, very hard in total sync.
Not only did you share it with the cast, you shared the story of making that film with the world, and it made them feel part of the family.
The weird thing is that I've had just as many people come to me saying they love all the behind the scenes, extra stuff as the actual film itself, which is great.
But you can learn more about filmmaking in watching those behind-the-scenes films than you could at 2 years at NYU or someplace like that.
As a course in filmmaking, just being part of the shoot on a daily basis and watching, there's a saying in New Zealand they have, we put it together with number 8 wire. And that's kind of the way the movie was made.
And the way Peter believes in his team of people, like the costume designer and the production people and just everyone, he believes in the people so much and gives them amazing opportunities and the giving, and it was just beautiful. It was
A
really
whole generation of New Zealanders learned how to make movies during that.
The one thing that I will say about that, and Taika will actually understand what I'm saying, is that it was it had all the trappings of a big Hollywood film, but it was shot as a Kiwi home movie.
Yeah,
it was an indie.
It was. We shot it as a Kiwi home movie. That was the whole.
I can definitely attest to that. I remember, Pete, one day we were on the Edoras set, and you came to me and said, listen, I feel like, we need a little something here from your character. And you literally got the book out and came to this passage that was in the Two Towers where Aomer was addressing the Rohirrim. And I remember you wrote down a whole chunk of dialogue on the back of the sides and said, here you go, we're going to be shooting this in about 20 minutes. I couldn't believe it. And I said to you, this feels not too dissimilar to like a small independent New Zealand film.
Before we go, I'd love to ask everyone who's watching at home today who enjoyed this to please click this button and donate to No Kid Hungry. I'm so blown away by Cheerios' generosity in donating $1.3 million. But I really, really, really am selfish and would love to get that number up even higher. The coronavirus is closing schools nationwide, and millions of vulnerable children are losing the school meals they depend on a daily basis. For some, that's the only food they'll receive in a given day. Now, to lead us out, as I always do on Reunited Apart, I love to go out with a good song. And there's no better song that I can think of for this moment than your song, Billy Boyd, from Return of the King, The Edge of Night.
Home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread, through shadow to the edge of night, until the stars are all alight. Mist and shadow, cloud and shade, all shall fade, all shall fade.
I'm actually crying.
Nice one, Bill. Bring it home, son.
By the way, I almost forgot. I have one last thing for you. Ian Holm couldn't join us today, but he sent a note that I wanted to share with you all. Ian writes to all of you, dearest friends from the ring, I am sorry to not see you in person. I miss you all and hope your adventures are taking you to many places. I am in lockdown in my Hobbit home or home with all my love, Ian Holm.
I think I'm quite ready for another adventure.
Thank
All
you
right,
all.
see you.
See you.
I'm gonna hug.
Oh, who's going to be the last? This is like Russian roulette now.
Yeah,
oh, another one's gone. One's gone.
Who's gonna
oh,
stay on to the bitter end?
Who's last?
Vigo's not, by the way, Vigo is
I
not
don't
around. He's like, I'm gonna outlast
Go
you
to your
all.
bottom right, Bill. Go to your bottom right.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah.
Vigo and Sean, do you guys want to stay on and we'll have a pint together?
Oh, Billy's gone. Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, they're dropping like flies. Oh, no. Oh, God. Who's going to be? All right, I'm going to go. I think Livty should be the last. Because
No,
he
I
doesn't
can't.
want-
I'll be the
Let's
last.
see
I'm
that
not leaving.
beautiful-
Oh, don't go.
See you, friends.
Now it's up to everybody to decide what the world after this pandemic is going to be like. So everyone's got to really lift their game and turn the world into a good place when it's finished. It's a reset moment, and it's up to all of us to make sure that what comes out of it, hopefully, the only good thing that can come out of it is something better.
Oh, cheers.
Bad dates.
Got it. Here it is. It's taken ages. Sorry it's taken so long.
please subscribe to my YouTube channel right now.